name is Carrie Mugridge, and I just went ahead and wrote the questions on the cards, and I thought I'd just go through them for you. What do you do for a living? Well, I'm a teacher. I'm currently a reading specialist for K through 5. My husband is a district manager for Quick Shop, which is basically convenience stores. Our story for why we needed IVF, it's a long story. It was a 5-year process. The first month that we tried, we conceived naturally, and we were very excited. We of course took it for granted, not knowing that it was such a precious gift. At 6 weeks I had a miscarriage. My doctor assured us that this happens all the time, it wouldn't be a big deal, and we could start trying right away. So we started trying right away, and again and again and again and again, and it wasn't happening and it wasn't happening. After a year, we started running some tests. We found out that my husband Ben has low sperm count, and they're kind of funny shaped, and so they weren't always the best quality, shall we say. So it was determined that IVF would probably be our best chance. So that's kind of how we got to the road of IVF. It took us about a year and a half to get to that road of IVF, but once we were there, it was quite the process. Why did you consider traveling abroad, and have I ever traveled abroad before? So why did I consider traveling abroad? Actually, I was cleaning the basement one day. We had just finished our first complete cycle with our first clinic of go through the cycle, it was negative, do a frozen embryo transfer, it was negative, do another frozen embryo transfer, and those embryos ended up not being able to be transferred because they ended up dying before they were able to be transferred. And so I was in the basement cleaning. We were in that point of like saving money for the next treatment cycle, and just in that stage of what do we do now? And CNN was on, and they did a whole story on how American couples are traveling abroad to Europe and Africa even, Mexico, all kinds of different places for IVF because it's so much cheaper abroad. And so I thought, well, hey, I'll check into it. So I started doing some internet research and checked into it and found some amazing things out there. And it just gave us that hope again that yes, we could do this, we could do it sooner than we ever thought we could here in the United States, because we didn't have to save as much money. So that was how we came up with it. Neither one of us had traveled out of the country before, so we were excited. We had something exciting to look forward to with that. Why did I decide on my IVF alternative? When I was doing my Google search, it was one of the first 2 that popped up. I had done Europe as where I thought I would like to go for abroad, and so IVF popped up. The IVF alternative popped right up, and I had several questions, and so I remember I emailed several questions to the contact on there, which turned out to be Mag, and she responded right away and was so patient and kind. I also loved on her website how she had her blog and told her story, and it just became very personal, and you connected with her right away. What was my doctor's reaction when I told her that we were going to do IVF abroad? My doctor is not the normal. She's very, very supportive and positive and just wants to help her patients. And so she was gung-ho and ready to go. And she said, oh my gosh, they have wonderful things that they're doing over there. I've read all their stuff. So she was really excited and very supportive. She set up all my blood tests. She got me free birth control pills, so I didn't have to pay for that as part of preparing to go. So she's wonderful, and she had no qualms about it whatsoever. How did my IVF Alternative Services and approach compared to services of the local clinic? This is kind of a loaded question. The first clinic that we chose because I decided if I was going to do IVF, I was going to go to the best, and so I researched the top clinics in the country, found one of the top clinics in the country, the one closest to our home. It was still about a 3-hour drive, but I decided if they're the best, that's where we're going to go. So we went there, and we became part of the factory. And there's just so many people, and it was such a huge hospital, and it was such a big clinic. I maybe saw the doctor twice, and that was on the actual day of like transfer, or the actual day where they were taking the eggs out. I talked mainly on the phone with nurses or a coordinator. There was a lot of miscommunication because you would call and then 12 to 14 hours later somebody would call you back. Well, when you're on IVF meds, every hour counts and you need to know like right away what's happening. And so we had a lot of issues with that, and so we had already decided that we were not going back to that clinic for our next round. It just wasn't personal, we didn't get the service we needed, and we didn't even feel like they even knew who we were or our story or cared about us. And so I really wanted to find a clinic where I felt that personal connection. Were you worried about paying ahead of time for your treatment? Actually, I didn't even think about it until this question came. At our first clinic, we had to pay ahead for everything. At least months in advance. You had to put down a chunk of a deposit and then, pay, a few weeks before. So having to pay ahead of time, I really didn't think about, because that's what I'd done at all the other treatments. So, did my IVF alternative prepare you for your journey? Yes. They did a wonderful job of sending us a travel guide, and the travel guide had everything from hotels to who would pick you up at the airport, who to contact, to airplanes, airports, what to do when you're there, setting up your accommodations, all of these wonderful things. And so it was easy just to kind of go step by step and make sure that I had all my bases covered and I was ready to go. So that was no problem at all. How did you feel as a foreigner in Czech, and did you feel unsafe? Absolutely not. I never felt unsafe. It was a wonderful place. I will say I'm from Kansas, and in Kansas, everybody, when you see anybody, whether you know them or not, you say, "Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you." And in the Czech, they're not exactly like that. So my husband kept telling me, "Stop saying hi to everybody," because they'd look at me kind of funny. They weren't unfriendly, but they were definitely like, "Who is this strange lady? Who's talking to us?" So, that everybody was very friendly. Almost everybody knew English, which is wonderful. It was very easy to get around. We had a great time. Everywhere you went, they had menus were in English that you could ask for the English option. So I never felt like I was lost in translation, shall we say. What was our experience like at the clinic? The staff was very, very friendly. What I loved the most about the clinic was that the doctor was our main contact. When we first went for our very first appointment, the first day that we were there for our first ultrasound, he was the one who met with us. He's the one who did our ultrasound. He's the one who talked to us. When I would call and check on our embryos, how they were growing, sometimes I talked to him, or sometimes I talked to the actual embryologist. So it was just wonderful to talk to people who were a part of my case and who had a vested interest in it, and who actually knew answers and didn't have to say, "Well, I'll check on it and I'll call you back." So that was really wonderful. I didn't really feel like there was a language barrier. Everybody I talked to had great English. There was no problem with that. In fact, when I woke up from anesthesia after they removed the eggs, every time that happens for me, I wake up in a little bit of pain. I just have cramps. And I remember that I woke up and I was cramping, and one of the nurses came up, and she was speaking to me very smoothly, and she was talking to me, and she was giving me medicine, and she was rubbing my hand, and she just stayed with me. And I just remember what a comfort she was, and how, in my other experience, I was just left alone in a room and no one came to check on me. So it was really, really comforting to have her there with me. The clinic equipment was fantastic. It was very modern. It was very clean. The clinic was very, very impressive. I've told all of my friends that I felt so safe and so comfortable and so well taken care of at this clinic. They were amazing. There were no hidden costs for us. There was nothing like that. So everything was very upfront and very forward. I really appreciated that. What was it like being abroad for treatment? Well, my husband and I made it a vacation. It was wonderful. We spent tons of our free time, because you have a lot of free time. We spent so much of our free time exploring. We went to Prague for a few days. We went to Budapest, which was our favorite, for a few days. We went to Vienna. We saw all the sights. We did all the stuff in Brno. We ate at all the restaurants and all the pubs there. He had a wonderful time trying all the different beers and everything, so it was a good time. Navigating the city was no problem whatsoever. Their public transportation is wonderful, and just they had everything we could ever need. They had the grocery store, they had a mall, they had a cute little kind of downtown shopping area. It was wonderful. We did not rent a car, we just used public transportation for all of it, so that was good. Did you save money and get faster treatment? Absolutely, we saved some money. I would say though, in my mind, I had just looked at the price that was on the website, and I didn't think about, oh, we're going to want money for traveling and vacation and so on and so on and so on. So that was a little surprising to me, but that was my own naive fault because I didn't think about that. But we definitely saved money, and yes, we got faster treatment. They could have taken us pretty much any time we wanted, where at my old clinic you had pretty much a 6 to 9 month waiting period, so that was really nice. Our treatment outcome when we went to the check was a negative pregnancy. When we got there, Dr. Mack, who was our doctor there, I said, how are things looking? And he's like, eh. I was like, oh. And so he just told us that the sperm was okay, but it wasn't the best quality. And the embryos were growing, but they weren't growing too very fast. They were kind of a slow bunch. So we still had hope though. We thought this is gonna be our positive. We're gonna go for this. So they put in 2 embryos, they froze 1, and then we ended up being negative. And so we were saving our money to have another IVF vacation, and then we found out we had a natural pregnancy, and our daughter is now 20 months old, and she is truly the light of our life, and we appreciate her and see her as a blessing more than I probably ever could have with another child. So she's everything to us. Tax deduction. Yes, we definitely wrote this off as a tax deduction. We wrote off the medical expenses, we wrote off a lot of the traveling. Our accountant helped us with a lot of it, but it was wonderful. Another thing that helped save a lot of money from Mag, one of her tips was using that where you can get through one of the pharmacy companies, you can write, and if you tell them your kind of story and what you're doing, they will pick you to get free meds, and so that helped us a lot too. But yes, we did use it as a tax deduction. The whole experience, I felt like the whole experience was wonderful. When we look back on it and we say that we went to the check, because we talk about it quite a bit, the IVF is not the first thing that came to mind. The first thing that came to mind was, it was like our first honeymoon, because we didn't really have a honeymoon when we got married. So it comes to mind that we had a honeymoon and we had this wonderful vacation. We met friends there that we still see, and they have a little girl too, and so our little girls are growing up together. They live in Texas, we live in Kansas, and we try to see each other once a year, but we talk at least once a month. Then our Denisa, who is our coordinator that was in the Bruno in the check, she's wonderful. We bonded with her. We talk all the time on Facebook also. She's wonderful. She's coming to the United States. We're going to see her when she comes next year. And then, of course, I met Mag and her husband and her aunt and uncle. They were all wonderful, and we talk as much as we can and try to keep up with each other. But that whole experience just bonded us together, and it was wonderful. So it was great. It wasn't too stressful. What would you like to tell others? So much I'd like to tell others. Number 1 is don't ever give up hope. You're one step further today than you ever were yesterday, and just keep that in mind. And you know, my husband and I went through 5 years of hell to get where we are, and it was worth every step. Once you're there, it's worth every step. And if you really want your family, you'll get your family one day somehow. It might not be the way you dreamed of or the way you thought, but you'll get your family. And I would highly recommend the IVF alternative as a chance for couples to take. It is a vacation, it's some money saving, and IVF is stressful. It's emotionally, physically, financially draining. And to take a vacation while you're doing it is just, it was so wonderful to be able to know that I was on vacation. And even though I was doing this IVF, it wasn't the forefront of everything. We were still having fun and doing things and meeting people and getting out. I had the massage therapist come to our apartment while we were there, and he was wonderful. We went to the salt mines and sat down there and did relaxation there. I went and did acupuncture there. Everything about it was just wonderful, so I'd highly recommend it. And that's it. So thank you very much. Bye.